I found a new job at a brokerage firm and ended up sitting next to an energetic 53-year-old Russian woman named Lena. As I settled into my new office, several women were talking to her, and she was glowing with happiness and joy, chatting with her colleagues. The atmosphere around me felt surprisingly friendly. However, as soon as the woman left her office, her desk phone rang, and I overheard a tense conversation from the neighboring desk. Lena's voice trembled with disappointment, echoing through the thin walls of our shared office space. Her recent bright demeanor shifted to irritation and stress. She gripped the phone receiver tightly in her shaking hand. It seemed that this woman was carrying an unbearable hellish burden on her shoulders. Her laughter and energy were magnetic, but this phone conversation indicated that her life was much more complicated than it appeared. Lena's office, recently filled with laughter and lively conversations, now seemed like the stage for a family crisis. I couldn't help but overhear her talking in a tone of anger and despair. "How many times do I have to pull you out of debt? I don't have that kind of money. You promised me. Never again. Really? Where was your brain? And why do you need a car? Your practice is 3 minutes from our home. Besides, it's reckless to buy a Porsche when you work 4 days a week for 4 hours a day. What are you saying? Your childhood dream. Normal men work 40 hours a week. Roll up your sleeves and start working full-time. Earn your toys. Ask your mom." "Which mom?" "The one you constantly nag. And whom you constantly offend." "That mom." "And how can I ask her? My husband bought a $100,000 toy and landed in debt, and smells worse than you. Help him. He won't do it again. Of course, I'll thank her. But how can I make you respect her and not set a bad example for our daughter, who treats her grandmother the same way you do? What are you saying?" "Yes. She's old. And she smells. And you'll stink even worse if I leave you where you are to rot. She's my mom. And she gives me money to bring you home. So, say another word, and I'll leave you there forever, so you can treat your guard's teeth for the rest of your life. Or so they can knock yours out for not paying debts." During the lunch break, I joined a colleague who leaned toward me conspiratorially. "You're so lucky to sit next to Lenat," she whispered enviously. "Her husband is a dentist, and they have 2 houses. Can you imagine?" I nodded absently, still thinking about the conversation I had heard. There was a clear discrepancy between the glamorous image and private problems. Returning to my desk after the break, I overheard Lena quietly talking on the phone. "Mom, I need your help. My husband can't control himself, and I don't know how long I can endure this and what to do." Her voice trembled, and I felt sympathy for her. Behind the scenes, Lena's life was a tragedy. Over time, I became acutely aware of Lena's dual image. Everyone was charmed by her, partly because of her supposed wealth. Lena loved to dress in luxurious, extravagant outfits that received compliments from her friends and colleagues. Her laughter and charisma acted like a beacon, attracting people to her. However, in moments of solitude, her phone calls revealed a woman on the verge of collapse, juggling family responsibilities and financial problems. Lena was never alone during lunch, always surrounded by a group of colleagues for long walks. Her behavior during these walks was energetic, her face glowing as she talked about her grandson or her daughter's achievements in dance. However, the contrast was obvious, no one would ever guess that she had been crying earlier. I became an involuntary witness to Lena's personal problems. Her frequent phone conversations with family members always ended in tears. It was a mystery how she managed to cope with work, given the colossal amount of time she spent on the phone and then crying. The family dynamics of her family were just as troubling. Her elderly mother's unhygienic habits irritated her husband and daughter. For the past 4 years, Lena had been taking care of her younger sister, who was battling terminal cancer, with almost no chance of recovery. Lena's sister had married a successful businessman at the age of 40, and they had twins, a boy and a girl. Lena's sister's husband, heartbroken over his wife's illness, found solace in alcohol. He stopped working and couldn't take care of the children, leaving all the responsibilities on Lena's shoulders. I overheard Lena talking to doctors, hoping for a miracle. She often called the hospice to comfort her sister. She communicated by phone with her mother, who regularly complained about her health, the bad behavior of the little children, and the rudeness of her son-in-law and granddaughter. When Lena's sister passed away at the age of 49, Lena was left to care for her deceased sister's children. And I was forced to helplessly listen to Lena's endless phone conversations and watch her tears and sobs. At home, Lena found fleeting moments of happiness when her son visited with her 1-year-old grandson and when she traveled with her daughter to dance competitions. These trips seemed to strengthen their bond, although the worry and stress always returned when they got home. Lena's husband, a dentist with a passion for alternative medicine, gave her various vitamins, supplements, and strange procedures with black and red lamps. Her friends, fascinated by her exotic stories about alternative medicine, eagerly bought these products from her. Despite her persuasive efforts, I remained a skeptic and continued to rely on my doctor's advice and maintain a healthy lifestyle. Melissa, Lena's 14-year-old daughter, took up most of her phone time. Melissa ignored her mother's work obligations and called her repeatedly without a second thought. One day, she called her mother in the middle of a workday. I hoped the conversation would be short, as it distracted not only her mother but also me. The conversation started calmly, and at first, I managed to focus on my work. "Mom. Jessica invited me to a sleepover. Can I go?" Jessica was a year older. Sometimes Melissa stayed over at her place, but when that happened, Lena usually talked to Jessica's parents to make sure adults were supervising the girls. "Sure, but let her mom call me," Lena replied. "Mom. Her parents are on vacation. But I've stayed at Jessica's many times, and nothing bad has ever happened to me," Melissa explained. "How many people will be at the party?" Lena asked. "A few. But they are good friends," Melissa simply answered. "How old are your good friends?" Lena insisted. 17 and 18 years old. "They are so cool, Mom," Melissa pleaded. "Melissa, you are not going to that party." "I forbid it," Lena firmly said. "Mom. Are you crazy?" Melissa began to have a tantrum. "Do you want me to lose all my friends? I've already promised." She was screaming so loudly that I could hear her from my office. At that moment, I realized I needed a break. I couldn't concentrate with her hysterics in the background. I thought about going to the cafeteria for coffee but changed my mind. My project was urgent, and I didn't have time for a break. So, I stayed at my desk, waiting for their conversation to end. "You shouldn't promise without asking me first," Lena replied quietly but firmly. "But we didn't know Jessica's parents were going on vacation," Melissa's voice softened. "I only found out a few hours ago, and we decided to get together." "Please, Mom." I was amazed at how this girl manipulated her tone of voice, hoping to persuade her mother one way or another. "Why?" Lena sounded worried, as if something terrible was happening. "Why would Jessica's parents interfere with your party?" she asked in a strict tone. "Because." Melissa yelled again. "Because what?" Lena calmly insisted. "Because you don't need to know all the details of my personal life. That's why." Melissa became hysterical again. "So, it's because of a boy you want to spend the night with, right? Am I right?" Lena asked with a trembling voice. "It's none of your business." Melissa screamed again. I had so many thoughts in my head that I wanted to scold this brat. But Lena didn't disappoint me. She replied exactly as I thought she should. "Daughter. You're 14, you're a minor. I need to know who you're with and where you are at all times. And if I don't, you'll end up in foster care. Got it?" Lena explained. "I'd rather live in foster care than with you." Melissa yelled, and I found myself thinking she sounded like a barking dog. "All I ask is to go to a friend's place, and you keep me at home like in a prison. You're worse than a jailer. I hate you. Why are you like this, Mom? You don't love me at all?" I was incredibly outraged by the tone and manner in which Melissa spoke to her mother. It was full of impudence, disdain, and contempt. "Oh. If only I had the authority, I would. Yeah. Easy to say. I love you very much, daughter. That's why you're staying home. You'll get permission to go to Jessica's sleepover when her parents return from vacation. And now I need to get back to work. Lena hung up the phone. Her hands were trembling, and tears were streaming down her face like a waterfall. I wanted to go over and hug her for comfort. But our relationship wasn't close enough for me to do that. Lena pushed the phone away, pulled the computer keyboard closer, and tried to focus on the screen. But it was just a facade. I heard her quiet, desperate sobs and realized her efforts to work were futile. A minute later, the phone rang again. Mom. Why did you hang up? The familiar barking voice distracted me from work again. We haven't finished our conversation. I'm asking you one last time, can I go to Jessica's tonight? Just say yes, and I'll leave you alone. No, Melissa. You won't be going to Jessica's tonight, Lena said. I already told you that you'll go there when her parents are home. But if you really want to spend time with Jessica tonight, invite her and your friends over to our house. Mom, are you crazy? Oh God. That hysterical scream again. I can't invite people to our house where my smelly and dirty grandma lives, and my cousins run around like crazy. They always come into my room. I have no privacy in our house. It's embarrassing. Melissa, you are saying very cruel and unacceptable things. You should be punished for that. You are deeply upsetting me, Lena said in a sad tone. I'm upsetting you? Melissa screamed hysterically again. No, Mom. It's you. You're upsetting me. My answer is no. And don't call me again. Lena hung up the phone and sat in silence for a few seconds, then quietly began to cry, her sobs filled with hopeless sadness. Listening to this conversation was very hard. I couldn't work and couldn't imagine how Lena could focus on her job. Her 14-year-old daughter's manipulative behavior and constant demands were exhausting her. But despite Lena's efforts to keep her daughter in line, Melissa always found a way to get what she wanted, often playing on her parents' emotions. The next day, Lena was late for work. She entered her office looking very pale, and I realized she hadn't slept the previous night. Lena pulled a makeup bag out of her desk drawer and applied makeup to hide her face, worn out from sleeplessness. Within a few minutes, she was chatting and smiling with friends as if nothing had happened. Then they left. Lena tried to work for about an hour, and I hoped this quiet would last longer. But soon she called her husband. What? He answered rudely. Sasha, I thought we agreed that you wouldn't give Melissa permission without discussing it with me first. You agreed. I didn't agree to anything. What do you mean? Do you not care? Melissa spent the night with adult guys. Because you allowed her. Lena was breathless with indignation. Yes, he said defiantly. Why should I deny my beloved daughter anything? You are the mother. It's your duty and responsibility to teach our daughter proper behavior. And he hung up. And these conversations happened constantly. At work, Lena was under constant pressure from her boss, who regularly humiliated her. Despite completing all tasks on time, her boss's dissatisfaction and harsh words often brought her to tears. It was amazing how she managed to keep a cheerful face amid constant difficulties. It was extremely hard for me to be her coworker. It not only distracted me from work. I brought home a negative mood, which was abnormal. The weight of her burden was evident in every phone conversation I overheard, in every sigh she made. Finally, I decided to talk to her. Lena, I can't ignore your problems. I constantly hear your conversations and see how they affect you. You need to find a way to reduce this stress for the sake of your health. She weakly smiled, and her eyes filled with tears. I know, but what can I do? I don't know how to change anything. You spend most of the day in tears. I understand you have many family problems, and some of them are out of your control. But you can reduce the stress. Stop calling your husband. It's useless to talk to him. Conversations with him always end in your tears, and nothing changes. Also, stop talking to your daughter for hours. Learn to say no and end the conversation. Don't answer the phone when she calls again. Even I know now that your bans are useless. When you forbid her something, she goes to her father, who allows her everything. Why waste your nerves on useless conversations that will soon give even me a heart attack? Your household will put you in the grave early. And you still need to raise your nephews. Take care of yourself. Sorry for being blunt, but I had to say it. You talk about your supplements, vitamins, and lamps to boost the immune system. But with the amount of stress you constantly get, your immune system will soon give up if you don't stop feeding it constant stress. I've never seen anyone cry as much as you do. Stop killing yourself. Unfortunately, my words went unheard. One day, as I was walking to my workplace, I ran into Lena in the corridor. She smiled at me, and then suddenly started crying. I hugged her and led her to her workplace. Why don't you take the black lamp and smash it over your husband's head? It won't solve the problem, but you'd surely enjoy his reaction to your crazy behavior. She weakly smiled and even chuckled quietly. Since then, I became her special and only friend before whom she didn't pretend. She shared her problems with me, many of which I already knew about. Lena complained about her husband's wasteful habits, despite the fact that he earned very little. I was surprised. What do you mean, little? He's a dentist. The whole floor talks about your wealth and prosperity because he's a dentist and you're a programmer. Let them talk. At least something positive, she said ironically. The truth is, I earn $45,000. Why so little, Lena? I was surprised. This is much below the average salary of a programmer. Well, I've gotten used to this place. I have many good friends here. I don't want to lose that, and I don't have the strength to start building new relationships at a new job. My husband has his own practice. He pays a lot for its maintenance, but he works only 16 hours a week and earns $70,000. Considering that my mom and my sister's kids live with us, Jessica is growing up fast and asking for a lot of things, and my husband loves showing off, our combined income of $115,000 is not enough. Recently, I discussed Melissa's 15th birthday present with him. I suggested buying her a ring for $200, and he agreed. I went to the store and bought her a very nice ring, suitable for her age. The next morning, Jessica ran up to me, very excited. Mom! Look what Dad gave me for my birthday. She showed me a gold ring with a huge 1-carat diamond on her little finger. I was shocked. Why did he do this? Just to hurt me? I didn't even show Jessica the ring I bought. I asked my husband why he did that, but he just brushed me off like an annoying fly. Lena talked about divorcing her husband and asked for my advice. It's not my place to give you advice, I said. But I think that a divorce won't rid you of the main problems, your daughter's obedience and your relationship with your husband. Besides, think about how many nerves you'll lose and what you'll achieve. Maybe it would be better to think about yourself. Change your behavior and stop being on a short leash with your daughter and husband in situations where you already know you can't change anything. The work environment at the company was oppressive, and everyone felt the weight of stress and anxiety. Tragically, a 45-year-old father of 2 had a heart attack during an annual review. There was no reward for hard work, only constant pressure and stress. The upper management pressured our direct managers, and they, like a ricochet, sent this pressure to their subordinates, creating a sweatshop system that only led to more problems. I left the company a year later, refusing to endure the oppressive management style. A few months later, I unexpectedly received a call from Lena. It turned out she was calling me from the hospital. What happened? I asked anxiously. I have leukemia, she replied sadly. How terrible. How bad is it? I asked with a heavy heart. Very bad. I've been in the hospital for a month and a half undergoing chemotherapy. I've lost a lot of weight and all my hair. If you saw me, you wouldn't recognize me, she said. My dear. Believe me. I would recognize you in any form. You still speak the same way, so I'll just say your name and follow the sound. I said, trying to lift her spirits with a joke. I've been through tough times myself and know that the best way to cope with difficulties is a positive attitude and laughter. I love laughing at everything and everyone, no matter how silly, inappropriate, or idiotic the jokes may be. Jokes and laughter have always been my favorite forms of therapy. Despite my warnings, Lena didn't change her life, and the constant stress led her to a deadly illness, just as I warned. I'm not a prophet or a doctor. But I felt uneasy that my warnings came true with incredible accuracy, and she was diagnosed with leukemia. It was incredibly hard for me to hear Lena's last story about how her family finally realized her value when it was too late. She sadly talked about how they recognized their mistakes. But I didn't believe her husband really understood what he had done. He continued to sell his vitamins, supplements, and lamps, which supposedly improved the immune system. But no one knew he destroyed his wife's immune system, leaving his daughter without a mother, his mother-in-law without a daughter, and sending Lena's nephews to an orphanage. 2 weeks after that phone call, Lena passed away at the age of 55, leaving behind a legacy of resilience and compassion for those who knew her. Her story stayed with me, a testament to the strength and fragility of the human spirit.